We want to see an approach to fighting the climate crisis where it doesn't put the burden on the backs of working people, where big polluters have to pay their fair share, they have to pay the price of their pollution, but it shouldn't be on working people's shoulders.
You are so stupid.
Good evening from our nation's capital. Tonight we're going to be talking about Jagmeet Singh and his revisionist history and how he's using that in an attempt to get votes.
Let's take a look.
What would you do if the federal government does intervene in this labor dispute as they did with the rail work stoppage?
So we're going to do everything we can to fight back. We're going to send a clear message again that we are opposed to Justin Trudeau and the Liberals or any government interfering with workers. We're opposed to that. We're going to fight back. If there's any bills being proposed on back-to-work legislation, we're going to oppose that. We're going to fight back against that. We're never going to support back-to-work. Unlike Pierre Poilievre, who likes to cosplay, likes to put on a costume as if he cares about workers, but the reality is he voted to send workers back to work, basically undermining their right to strike, undermining their ability to get a freely and fairly negotiated contract, undermining workers 8 times, just himself. He voted 8 times to force workers back to work. This is someone with a proven track record of hurting workers, of opposing workers' interests. So let's be clear, New Democrats are the only allies for working people that will always stand resolute in favor of workers, and we will never support back-to-work legislation.
You want to talk about a track record, Jagmeet? Why don't we look at the last 3 years? Because every single budget that you have voted for with the Liberals in your supply and confidence agreement has hurt not only workers, but every single Canadian. Let's be real here.
Well, I mean, Jagmeet and the NDP are the ones that have caused this inflation because they supported the Liberals and their crazy policies.
Well, and you know, there wouldn't be a need for these aggressive and adversarial collective bargaining agreements across all unions across this country if it weren't for the massive inflation. Because remember, people in the private sector, you know, if they do get raises, they get raises annually, and you know, it's dependent on the year.
It's usually a cost of living increase, right?
No, there's not usually a cost of living increase in private sector. It's basically performance or nothing. But when it comes to the unions, it's a pre-negotiated increase in many, many cases. So you've pre-negotiated that increase, not taking into account that Trudeau and Singh are going to be voting for ridiculous budgets that are going to increase inflation to record highs. So their wages were very, very behind through these years, through COVID, through the pandemic, and now there is their opportunity to try and catch them up. So I don't blame the unions for, you know, asking for something that's reasonable. So this is the problem. Singh has been voting to increase inflation, to keep it high, to screw over every single Canadian cost of living, and then he has the gall to turn around and say, well, Pierre has a tendency and a track record of voting again. Like, don't even.
Would back-to-work legislation be a red line for your confidence in the government?
Well, I said this to Justin Trudeau, you know, years ago when I was fighting to force Justin Trudeau and the Liberals to deliver things like dental care, that if you ever make back-to-work legislation a confidence vote, we will always vote against that. So you can never count on our support. Whatever you say, you want to make it a confidence vote, make it one. We're still going to vote against it because we oppose undermining working people.
Well, we know that's a lie based on everything I've just said. And everything that Jagmeet and his frickin' party has voted for over the last 3 years. Just because. So you've undermined every single worker in this country, union and non-union. So again, I don't want to hear it, and neither do Canadians.
Today, Canada's Consul General from New York, Clark, is going to be testifying about his condo. The Conservatives have said that they would fire him. What would they do?
Well, let's be really clear. This is about the Liberal Party, Justin Trudeau's party, wanting fancy things for their friends while Canadians can't even afford a home. That's what this is all about. And we've seen that again and again. We've seen it with Liberals and with Conservatives. And we want to make sure that we're being very prudent and responsible with the way we spend our federal and public money.
So you want to be prudent and responsible with the way that you spend public money, yet you've helped the Liberals create this huge deficit year after year after year.
Well, and again, listen to what he says. Well, you know, the Liberals have done this. Okay, you've been right there voting with them.
Right, you helped. You're just as guilty.
And this is the problem with things like ArriveCan and the STTC scandal and all of these other things, because the NDP has voted for it time and time and time again. And then he tries to say, well, you know, Conservatives too. What have the Conservatives been able to do since the Liberals took power in 2015? Nothing, because they're not in power.
Right.
What have you been able to do? You have reminded people time and time and time again, well, we're going to use our power. We're going to use our power to force this Liberal government to do what we want them to do. Okay, so by your own admission, you've had power to force them to do what you want to do, yet you've kept them in power. You have assisted them in putting Canadians in poverty, and you are more responsible, I would say, than Justin Trudeau and the Liberals for the state that Canada is in, because you could have pulled the plug on this at any time and taken down this government, and you didn't.
Well, and I just want to point out that because of the NDP aiding the Liberals the past 2.5 years, the Conservatives haven't even been able to do their job as an opposition party, because they try. They absolutely try. The job of the opposition is to hold the government to account, and the Conservatives have been trying. But without the support of the NDP as an opposition party, they have not been successful, because in a minority government, all the opposition parties need to work together.
And when even the Bloc is holding the government to more account than the NDP, you know something's gone awry.
On parliamentary committees, the NDP have been kind of supporting the Liberals in committee dynamics when the deal was in place. Heading into this parliament, what should we expect in terms of the NDP's plans and strategy in parliamentary committees?
All bets are off. We've torn up the agreement with the Liberals. That means they can expect no help and no support from us. Anything that happens in Parliament will be based on, is it in the best interest of Canadians? We'll be fighting to find ways to get more relief for Canadians, to get more help to Canadians. That's what we're going to be focused on. And we will use every tool we can to try to get more relief for Canadians.
This guy.
We screwed up this country by helping the Liberals, but you know, we're going to use every tool at our disposal to fix things, you know, to fix the mess that we've made.
Well, in one breath, he says they can expect no support from us. And then in the next breath, he says, well, you know, we're only going to do what's in the best interest of Canadians. Jagmeet, what is in the best interest of Canadians in new polls is that Canadians want an election, and they want it now.
And we want a conservative majority. That's what Canadians want.
Yeah,
and
you can see it in the polls.
That's what Canadians deserve.
Right. We deserve a government with fiscal responsibility.
And integrity.
When we have had to put up with the most corrupt government in Canadian history. In all of the scandals since 1867, we've talked about this before, the Liberal government accounts for over a third of all scandals.
And counting.
And counting. So that percentage keeps ticking up.
Great from the Globe and Mail. You mentioned grocery prices as a priority a few times. Previously, your call for price caps has been dismissed as unworkable by Mr. Champagne, the minister, who's on that file. What exactly are you proposing and how would it work?
Well, the price cap idea is something that Ms. Weber is an economist, well-established, who came out with this idea in the first place. It's basically taking on corporate greed in a direct way. We know that when people go to the grocery stores, they are feeling squeezed. We also know these corporate grocery stores have their own in-house brands, and they set prices all the time. They bragged about freezing prices. They can absolutely set prices. And so we're saying, instead of asking them nicely and hoping that they're going to bring down prices, as the Liberals tried to do, as Justin Trudeau tried to do, he brought the CEOs and said, please, can you stabilize prices? That didn't work. We had his minister, Justin Trudeau's minister, come out and I don't understand how he could have said this with a straight face, but told Canadians they should do a better job of looking at grocery flyers as a way to lower prices for groceries, which was ridiculous and frankly insulting as well. And we're saying, no, none of that's going to work. What we need to do is impose a price cap. We can look at France as an example. They were able to lower the price of 5,000 essential food items, and our price cap would be the following. We look at essential food items, impose a price cap that You cannot charge more than a reasonable amount on these food essentials that would immediately give Canadians relief when it comes to their groceries.
That sounds like socialist talk to me.
There's so many problems with this, I can't even begin, but I will begin. Number one, this is entirely counterintuitive to what is a free market society, which is what we're in. So let's get that straight. Number two, Tanya's talked about this before, is that the minute you introduce price caps on one thing, what's to say the government doesn't increase price caps on more things?
Like more businesses. Like
Right.
what if they, start price caps on children's clothing or books or shoes or who knows, right? Like there's no limit. Once they start, they can keep going.
And here's the thing. It's almost like a tax, right? Because companies will get their money at some point. So what that means is that, fine, you're going to say these essential items, whatever that means. I want to know who gets to decide what essential is. But you're going to say that these items, they cannot be charged over X amount. Okay, well, what do you think is going to happen to all the non-essential items?
No, the price is going to go up.
Through the roof.
Because, say, for example, bread is considered an essential item and that they have a price top out on that one. What if there's a bad growing season for wheat? Then what happens? Who takes the hit?
And that's the thing. So now the grocery stores are going to have to run at a loss on bread, but then everything else is going to go up to compensate for that loss.
Right.
So rather than just bread taking a hit, you're going to see prices increase overall across the board on everything that is now quote unquote non-essential. And on all of the narcotics and drugs out there, because remember, all these major grocery stores now own drug chains.
And some of them have pharmacies within the store.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you're going to see all of those medications, all of those prices are going to increase. Like, this isn't a solution.
No, it's not at all.
And Jagmeet keeps talking about, well, we want to, spend money wisely. Well, how about you address the root of the problem, which is lower the frickin' taxes across this country?
Can you state clearly what your party's position is? If you form government, what would you do to the consumer carbon tax?
Well, let's also be clear about Pierre Poilievre's position. He wants to have free reign for big polluters to pollute as much as they want. His plan is to say there should be no penalty if a company pollutes into the river or to the water or to the air in their communities.
Oh, really?
Time out. Now, before we answer this question, the audio on the reporters' questions in this press conference has been horrendous per the NDP press conference standard. So we apologize for that. There's not much that we can do about that. I've addressed this. Future Ryan has addressed this in post-production and editing as much as I can. Now, we have talked about this false statement that Jagmeet Singh continues to make, and it's amazing that he is stupid enough to continue to do this. He obviously doesn't watch our show.
Well, and he is clearly forgetting that he's not inside the House of Commons, because outside the House of Commons, he can be sued civilly for things like slander or defamation.
Oh yeah, like it's ridiculous.
Like why he keeps saying this, I have no idea, because we've already debunked it.
But we will remind everybody again. So the Conservatives introduced a motion, Andrew Scheer actually, long time ago. And it was a very simple bill. All it was is a bill that would say, nobody is allowed to dump sewage into the river. Sounds like a reasonable bill.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds like an environmentally conscious bill.
Right?
Sounds like something that the Liberals and the NDP should both be supporting.
One would think.
Well, the interesting thing is that both the Liberals and the NDP, and let's take a look. Oh yes, Jagmeet Singh himself voted against this bill to prevent companies from dumping raw sewage into the river.
So, Jagmeet, who's in favor of dumping raw sewage into rivers?
It's not Pierre Poilievre. By the actual vote registration, that would be you and your party.
So that's his plan. He wants big polluters to do whatever they want. No rules for them. We're saying that they should be paying their fair share. A company that pollutes and poisons the environment, There should be a price on that. There should be a cost to that. They shouldn't be able to get away with poisoning our air or water or land without any penalty at all. That's what Pierre Poilievre is proposing. When it comes to workers, though, we disagree with the approach of Justin Trudeau, who's tried to pit workers against each other. He set up a scenario where in certain regions, based on electoral politics, he's giving advantages to the Atlantic provinces over other parts of the country. We disagree with that. I've came out very strongly opposed to that approach. We want to see an approach to fighting the climate crisis where it doesn't put the burden on the backs of working people, where big polluters have to pay their fair share, they have to pay the price of their pollution, but it shouldn't be on working people's shoulders.
You are so stupid.
If you still charge industry or corporations a carbon tax, who do you think they're going to pass that on to? Do you think they're just going to go, oh, well, we better pay this, from our own coffers? No, they're going to pass it on to the consumers.
Effectively, nothing would change.
Right.
Like, let's be real. Nothing would change.
I mean, the consumers wouldn't get hit twice. They wouldn't be getting hit with the industrial carbon tax and then their own consumer carbon tax. But, it's neutral. It's revenue neutral, right?
Well, my guess is the NDP would increase the industrial carbon tax even more. So, they can say, oh, look, we're really, nailing it to them. And then all of the prices on everything is going to go up via this phantom carbon tax on the consumers anyway.
If you want a greener country, if you want a greener planet, you need to make it so that green energy is more attractive. You need to start building nuclear plants. You need to make it cheaper to use nuclear energy than coal or gas.
Well, and you need an alternative fuel source for the automotive industry, especially for Canadians, that doesn't depend on how warm the weather is.
Right.
And it will fit within our current transportation system, because electric vehicles, it is not the solution for Canada.
Hydrogen cells may be the solution.
They've been working on that for a long time.
They have been, but...
and they still need to. But you need something. You need something.
You need to build it better and cheaper, and then people will use it.
We've been working on a plan, and we'll be releasing our plan, our vision for how we can do that in a stronger way in the coming months.
Wait a minute. So this must be what everybody is talking about when they're saying that Jagmeet Singh is abandoning the carbon tax. Because if he's saying that it shouldn't be on the backs of consumers, never mind the fact that he's been voting for this.
Yeah, he has been.
For the last 3 years.
He's just trying to differentiate himself from the Liberals. That's all he's doing right now.
And like, he's literally pretending that the supply and confidence agreement never existed.
Well, the Conservatives have come out and confirmed that when they say axe the tax, they mean get rid of it for consumers and get rid of it for industry, corporations, etc.
Because it lands up on the consumers.
Right. So I think Jagmeet Singh is trying to differentiate himself from both the Liberals and the Conservatives, because, I mean, the line is going to be, oh, well, the Conservatives don't care about the environment at all. That's why they want to get rid of the carbon tax entirely. But, I mean, that's the best thing for Canadians right now.
Well, that's the thing. Canadians need relief wherever they can get it. So if you drop the carbon tax from all this, and the other piece is that they need to make sure that these companies don't keep prices that they are and just take it as profit. That's a different thing. So they need to look at that. But prices can come down significantly across the board on literally every good and service across the country. Canadians would welcome that. And then you start getting rid of all these stupid, wasteful programs, and then you can start looking at cutting Canadian income tax. So although there's going to be, you can't go backwards, unfortunately. You're not going to see grocery stores decrease the price of groceries to what they were before the pandemic, because inflation has already screwed that up.
Right.
What you can handle is the additional piece of inflation, which is the carbon tax. So you can take that off and at least give Canadians some sort of relief, put more money back in their pocket, and let them make their own decisions in terms of what they want to pay for and when.